She stood alone, half hidden behind a battered stall crammed with broken gadgets and forgotten relics. She was different from the others. Slender, green-skinned, with hair like liquid silver cascading over her shoulders. Her wide, luminous eyes flicked nervously across the crowd, wary and tired. A tattered cloak failed to hide the faint shimmer that clung to her, as if some invisible energy wrapped itself around her frail form. No one approached her booth. People passed by, pretending she didn't exist. Some whispered cruel words under their breath. Others simply ignored her, treating her presence as another piece of the station's refuse. A human pilot, tall and broad-shouldered, paused a few meters away. His leather jacket bore the faded insignia of a forgotten regiment. His gaze locked onto her with a curiosity he couldn't explain. He hadn't come here for charity. Aurora Station was a pit stop, nothing more. A place to refuel, maybe pick up a job. But something about the girl rooted him in place. He watched as two reptilian merchants sneered at her, tossing scraps at her feet. She bent to retrieve them without complaint, her delicate fingers trembling slightly. Instinct moved him before thought caught up. His boots thudded against the metal floor as he crossed the space between them. The merchant stiffened at his approach, sizing him up with narrowed eyes. He said nothing, merely stood there, a silent wall between them and their target. After a beat of tense silence, the merchant slithered away, muttering curses under their breath. The girl looked up, startled. Up close, she seemed even smaller, more fragile than he'd realized. Her voice, when it came, was a soft rasp. "You shouldn't have done that." He shrugged, hands sliding into his pockets. Couldn't just watch. He glanced at the odd assortment of items cluttering her stall. Broken comms, half-dead servos, cracked data chips. Junk to most eyes, yet she arranged them carefully, almost lovingly. "No one helps without wanting something," she said, eyeing him with suspicion. "Maybe I'm just bored," he offered with a grin that usually melted resistance. She didn't smile back. "You'll regret it," she muttered, turning away to restack a pile of battered relics. He lingered, studying the intricate patterns faintly visible on her skin. Tattoos? Natural markings? He wasn't sure. Around them, life bustled on, oblivious. Ships roared overhead, engines flaring. The smell of fried kelp and synth meat drifted from nearby food stalls. Music, loud and distorted, throbbed through the station's ancient bones. "You have a name?" he asked, leaning casually against a support beam. Her hands faltered for a second before continuing their work. "Does it matter?" "It does to me." She hesitated, then whispered, "Elira." "Elira," he repeated, letting the sound linger in his mouth. It fit her, alien, musical, a shard of something lost. "And you, human?" He offered a crooked smile. "Call me Rin." For a moment, something softened in her expression, a crack in the armor. Then she pulled her hood lower, shielding herself again. He recognized the gesture. It wasn't just fear, it was survival. A group of armored security officers marched past, laughing too loudly, shoving aside anyone in their path. Elira shrank back, avoiding their gaze. Rin shifted subtly, blocking her from view. The officers moved on without noticing, but the girl's shoulders stayed rigid. "You're not safe here," he said, voice low. "I have nowhere else." "Maybe you do now." The words left him before he could stop them. Elira's gaze snapped to his, sharp and searching, as if weighing an invisible scale. Trust wasn't something given lightly on stations like this. Certainly, not to strangers. He didn't expect an answer, and she didn't give one. Instead, she handed him a battered trinket, a small metal sphere, humming faintly with residual power. "Take it," she said. "Payment for your regret." He curled his fingers around the object, feeling its strange warmth seep into his palm. Elira returned to her quiet work, shutting him out. but something invisible had already bound them. Neither understood it yet, but in that moment, among the broken things of a dying station, two lost souls had collided. And nothing in the galaxy would ever be the same. Rin returned the next day, feigning a casual stroll past the same rusted booths and flickering neon stalls. Traders barked over each other in 100 tongues, while thick coils of steam rose from cracked grates along the floor. Somewhere deep in the station, an alarm blared, ignored by all but the most cautious. Life on Aurora Station didn't stop for warnings. Elira's stall sat untouched in the chaos. She hunched over a broken hollow emitter, fingers moving with delicate precision, trying to coax life from its dead circuits. Her silver hair shimmered in the dirty overhead lights, the only piece of her that seemed untouched by the grime of the station. He drifted closer, pretending interest in a stack of cracked navigation discs. She didn't look up. "You again?" "She," said, voice neutral, almost weary. "Me again," he agreed, letting a smirk ghost across his face. Silence stretched between them, filled only by the hum of a malfunctioning power relay nearby. Elira adjusted a connection, sparks jumping between her fingertips. She didn't flinch. She simply blew the smoke away, indifferent. "You didn't have to come back," she murmured. "I never do anything I'm supposed to," Rin replied, flipping, a useless nav chip over in his palm. Her lips twitched, the hint of a smile she didn't quite allow. He caught it anyway, a flicker of warmth amid the cold steel of her defenses. "You're either stubborn," she said softly, "or stupid." "Maybe. Both," he chuckled. "But I like to think it's my charm." Elira set down the emitter and finally met his eyes. The weight of her gaze surprised him, not just sadness but defiance too, like a flame refusing to be smothered. She studied him with the wary calculation of someone used to betrayal. "You're not from here," she stated. "No one stays here by choice," he answered, truth slipping out before he could guard it. A small nod, barely perceptible, acknowledged his honesty. Without a word, she turned and rummaged beneath the counter, producing a battered thermos. She poured 2 cups of something steaming and slightly blue, offering him one. He accepted, pretending not to notice how her hands shook slightly. The drink was bitter, metallic, but he drank anyway. Trust wasn't spoken here, it was measured in small risks. "You know what they say about me?" she asked, voice almost lost in the background roar of the market. "I've heard whispers," he admitted, leaning casually against the frame of her booth. "That I'm cursed, dangerous. Bad luck just to speak to me. I don't believe everything drunks and scavengers mumble," he said. "You should," she replied, bitterness sharp under the calm surface. Her tentacle-like appendages, hidden beneath her cloak, shifted restlessly, betraying the tension she couldn't hide. He made no move to expose them, no mocking glances like the others. He just waited, patient. "You're not like them," she said finally, confusion threading her voice. "Never wanted to be," he said. She tilted her head, studying him again, this time as if seeing something she didn't expect. From the corner of his eye, Rin spotted 2 figures moving through the crowd. Dull armor, predatory gait, scanning every stall with practiced eyes. Bounty hunters, experienced ones. Elira noticed too. Her posture stiffened, shoulders hunching instinctively. Without thinking, Rin moved closer, shielding her from view. "Friends of yours?" he asked under his breath. "Enemies," she whispered. The hunters paused a few stalls away, arguing over a datapad. Elira's hand brushed Rin's sleeve, a silent plea he understood instantly. "Come on," he said, voice low but urgent. Leaving her booth unattended was dangerous, but staying meant worse. He led her through the maze of market stalls, weaving between arguing traders and oblivious tourists. Elira kept close, barely daring to breathe. They ducked into a service tunnel, pipes hissing overhead, the passageway dim and slick with condensation. Only when the sounds of pursuit faded did Rin slow. "You've got people hunting you," he said, more a statement than a question. "Everyone wants something," she said quietly. "They think I'm worth a fortune." "Are you?" he asked, half joking, though something inside him already suspected the answer wasn't simple. "To the right buyer, maybe." Alira pressed her back against the wall, sliding down until she sat on the grimy floor, hugging her knees to her chest. For the first time, she looked fragile, breakable in a way that tugged at him more fiercely than any bounty ever had. "You don't have to tell me everything," Rin said, crouching down beside her. "But I'm not leaving you here to get dragged off in chains." She searched his face, disbelief warring with desperate hope. No one had ever made promises to her before, especially not without asking for something first. "I don't have anything to give," she said. "Good," he replied, flashing a quick grin. "Makes it easier to know I'm not doing it for payment." Alira swallowed hard, silver hair falling across her face like a curtain. When she finally spoke, it was barely above a whisper. "My parents, they were killed. I was supposed to die too. But I didn't. And now I'm just a relic they all want to own." Rin's hands clenched into fists. Around them, the station thrummed with life, oblivious to the girl who carried a secret heavy enough to tear worlds apart. "Not anymore," he said. "You're not anyone's relic." For the first time, she smiled. It was small, trembling, but it was real. In that instant, surrounded by steel walls and the bitter stench of rust, Rin made a silent vow. Alira leaned against the cold metal wall of Rin's small ship, her knees drawn to her chest, silver hair spilling over her face like a curtain of moonlight. The small hold smelled of old leather, scorched circuitry, and the faint citrus tang of cleaning solvents. It wasn't much, but it was safe. At least for now. Rin moved around the cramped cabin with restless energy, checking weapon compartments, locking down navigation controls, and running silent diagnostics. His every movement was precise, practiced, purposeful. Years of habit, born from a life that trusted nothing and no one. "How long until they find us?" she asked, her voice barely more than a whisper. "Depends how much they want you," he replied without looking back. I think it's a lot," she murmured, wrapping her arms tighter around herself. Rin paused, his hand hovering over the comms panel. Something about the way she said it tightened a knot deep inside him. He turned, crouching in front of her, lowering his voice to something softer. "You're not cargo. You're not a bounty. You're not a damn prize," he said. Alira raised her eyes slowly, the shimmering green of her skin almost glowing against the ship's dim emergency lights. For a moment, neither spoke, words failing in the space between them. Rin pulled a worn cloth from his jacket pocket and handed it to her. She took it hesitantly, wiping a smear of oil from her forehead with slow, mechanical movements. "You're bleeding," she said suddenly, nodding at a scrape on his forearm. "I've had worse," he said with a lopsided grin. She didn't laugh, but the edges of her mouth twitched ever so slightly. Small victories. He stood, moving to the control console. His fingers flew over the cracked keys, setting a course for a dead zone beyond the station's long-range sensors. It wasn't much of a plan, but it bought them time. "You still haven't told me why they're after you," he said, his voice casual but firm. Alira hugged her knees closer. "I don't remember everything," she admitted. "Flashes, pieces, running, hiding." "Parents? Dead?" she whispered. "Friends? None." Her answers landed like stones between them. Rin exhaled slowly, hands gripping the console harder than necessary. Then, "It's just us," he said simply. The comms system crackled, drawing their attention. A coded signal flashed across the old screen. No words, only a symbol, a black star wreathed in silver flame. Elira's breath caught. "You know it?" Rin asked, already recognizing the answer. She nodded once, eyes wide with fear. "It's a hunting mark. Old. It means they won't stop." "They're wasting their time," Rin muttered, yanking out the comms feed before the transmission could finish. "They're not getting you." The ship shuddered as a proximity alarm howled. Two small crafts had detached from the station, pursuing fast. Light freighters modified for speed and weapons. Hunters, no doubt. Rin dropped into the pilot's seat. "Hold on to something," he barked. The engines roared to life, ancient but loyal, and the ship surged forward. Inertia slammed Elira against her harness as Rin jinked hard left, avoiding the first barrage of fire. Turbo lasers stitched bright death across the void, narrowly missing their tail. "Can you shoot?" he called over the rising hum. "Not really," she answered, gripping the side rail with white-knuckled desperation. "Good enough," he said, tossing her a small plasma pistol from under the console. "Just point and pull if they board." Her fingers closed around the weapon reluctantly. The ship twisted through a debris field, shattered remnants of long-forgotten battles. Metal shards glittered like deadly snow. Rin used the field to their advantage, threading impossible paths, forcing the pursuers to slow. One of the hunters clipped a spinning hunk of wreckage and exploded into a silent fireball. Elira flinched at the sudden burst of light. "One down," Rin said grimly. The second ship kept coming, faster, smarter. Rin gritted his teeth, pushing the engines harder. Warnings flared across the dashboard: overheating, structural strain, power drain. "We're not gonna make it," Elira said, panic breaking through her usual calm. "Yes, we are," Rin said through clenched teeth. The last pursuer closed in, cannons charging. In desperation, Rin cut main power, plunging the ship into darkness. They drifted dead and silent among the debris, invisible to scanners. The hunter swept past, searching, weapons scanning wildly. Holding his breath, Rin waited. Seconds stretched into lifetimes. Finally, the hunter moved beyond sensor range, assuming the kill. Rin slammed the restart sequence, and the ship roared back to life. They burned hard in the opposite direction, slipping into the dark folds of space beyond the station's reach. Only when the last beacon from Aurora Station faded into a speck behind them did Rin finally lean back, exhausted. Elira unbuckled, slowly dropping the pistol to the floor. "You saved me," she said, wonder creeping into her voice. "You're hard to kill," he replied, shooting her a tired grin. For the first time, she smiled fully, and it hit him harder than any blast. Somewhere, deep inside, he knew this wasn't over. But for tonight, for the first time in too many years, neither of them was running alone. The stars stretched endlessly around them, distant fires burning cold and unreachable. Rin adjusted course manually, fingers flying across the controls, trusting his instincts over the ship's outdated navigation systems. Trusting machines had cost him once. Never again. Elira sat silent beside him, wrapped in one of the worn jackets he had stashed behind the pilot's seat. It swallowed her frame, making her seem even smaller. Her eyes never left the viewport, watching the galaxy pass in ghostly trails. Neither had spoken since escaping Aurora Station. The silence wasn't heavy. It was cautious, filled with things. Both wanted to say but didn't know how to begin. The ship's AI, primitive at best, beeped a warning about depleted fuel reserves. Rin ignored it. Survival first, logistics later. He flicked a glance at her. She didn't notice, lost somewhere between memory and fear. "There's a place," he said finally, voice rough from disuse. "Abandoned mining platform in the Morrow Drift. Dead zone, no patrols, no eyes." Elira stirred slightly, pulling the jacket tighter around her shoulders. "Safe?" "As safe as anywhere gets in this part of space." She nodded without looking at him. They drifted in uneasy quiet for a while longer. The stars thickened, then faded as they plunged into the nebula's outskirts. Clouds of glittering dust and ion storms made sensors useless, exactly why Rin chose it. Entering the drift was like diving into fog. The ship's hull groaned in protest. Static crackled over the comms. Shadows of ruined mining rigs loomed out of the haze, skeletal and silent, grave markers for forgotten fortunes. Rin navigated between twisted beams and shattered platforms, finding a hollow in a derelict superstructure large enough to conceal them. Engines powered down with a weary whine. For now, they were invisible. The moment they were hidden, exhaustion hit like a crashing wave. Rin slumped back in the seat, scrubbing a hand through his hair. "You should rest," Alira said softly, voice carrying across the dim cockpit. "So should you," he replied, offering a wry smile. Her mouth curved faintly, almost a smile in return. She hesitated, then stood and padded carefully across the uneven floor toward the back of the ship. Rin followed. The living quarters were cramped. 2 bunks, a cracked view screen, a scattering of ancient data chips. Homey in the way only desperate travelers ever found comforting. Alira sank onto one of the bunks, folding her legs beneath her. The silver strands of her hair caught the faint emergency lights, shimmering like spun starlight. "Why are you doing this?" she asked quietly. Rin leaned against the doorway, crossing his arms. "Because you need it." "Nobody does anything without a reason," she said. "Maybe I'm tired of pretending I don't care," he answered after a long moment. Her gaze softened, searching his face for something he couldn't quite name. She nodded once, accepting his words without challenging them. He pulled a ration pack from a storage bin and tossed it to her. "It's terrible," he warned, "but it's food." She opened it cautiously, sniffing the contents before wrinkling her nose in mock disgust. The sound that escaped her was the closest thing to a laugh he had heard from her. They ate in companionable silence, broken only by the ship's faint creaks as it settled into the metal carcass around them. When they finished, Rin tossed the wrappers aside and leaned back against the wall. "You're not just some runaway," he said finally. "There's something different." Alira stiffened, the protective walls rising instinctively, but Rin raised his hand in peace. "I don't care what it is," he said. "It's yours." She relaxed, slightly, the tension draining from her posture. "I don't remember everything," she said. "But there are pieces. A room full of stars, voices calling me something important. Something lost." "Someone lost," Rin corrected gently. Her hands tightened in her lap. He didn't push. He waited. Finally, she whispered, "They want me because of what's inside me. Some ancient code, locked away before I could even speak. My blood. It's not just mine." Rin absorbed her words without flinching. "They think I'm a key," she continued, "to power, to secrets. I don't even understand." "You're not a key," Rin said, voice low and sure. "You're a person, and you're free." Tears welled in her eyes but didn't fall. She blinked them away, stubborn. He pushed off the wall, crossing the small cabin in 2 strides. Kneeling, in front of her, he placed his hands over hers, steady and warm. "You choose what you want to be," he said. "Nobody gets to own you." For a heartbeat, nothing moved. The ship drifted silent among the wreckage of dead dreams, and 2 living souls hung suspended between past and future. Alira leaned forward, resting her forehead against his. It wasn't a kiss. It wasn't a confession. It was a promise. Together. Rin closed his eyes, breathing her in. Tomorrow, they would plan their next move. Tomorrow, the galaxy would come hunting again. Tonight, they had each other. And that was enough. The derelict mining platform creaked around them, ghostly echoes filling the ship's hold. Elira stood near the main hatch, her slender figure outlined against the swirling mist beyond the viewport. Rin watched her from the shadows, studying the way she moved, graceful but wary, like a creature that had never known safety. They couldn't stay hidden forever. Supplies dwindled. Fuel reserves blinked a steady warning on the cracked dashboard. The galaxy outside hadn't forgotten them. It was merely biding its time. Rin slid a battered datapad across the table between them. A faint hologram flickered into life. A map, ancient and incomplete, lines and symbols etched across it like a forgotten language. "Found this in the wreckage," he said, voice low. Elira stepped closer, curiosity shining in her luminous eyes. She traced a trembling finger along the star paths, stopping at a symbol that pulsed faintly with energy. "I've seen that before," she breathed. "Where?" "In dreams," she whispered. "Or maybe memories." Rin leaned in. "It's a real place. Planet called Veliskar. Abandoned centuries ago. Rumor says old tech buried there. Powerful, dangerous." She hugged herself tightly, shivering despite the ship's warmth. "They think I'm the key to unlocking it." "You are more than that," Rin said fiercely. Still, the pieces aligned too perfectly to ignore. Veliskar, the lost dynasty, the genetic lock woven into her blood. "We have to go," Elira said. "It's a trap," Rin warned. Her chin lifted stubbornly. "Everything's a trap. At least this way we choose to walk into it." He admired the fire that flared within her. Not all chains were visible. Breaking the ones forged in her mind took far more courage. Fueling the ship drained their last reserves, but neither hesitated. Veliskar or nowhere. The journey was rough. Turbulent hyperspace. Lanes battered the aging vessel. Electrical storms left scorch marks across the hull. Twice, Rin had to reroute failing systems manually, cursing under his breath as sparks rained from broken panels. Elira stayed by his side throughout, her hands steady even when fear twisted her gut. When Veliskar finally rose before them, a cracked jewel adrift among dying stars, it stole their breath. Massive cities lay in ruins, their skeletal remains jutting from crimson sands. Once great monuments to forgotten glory, now little more than graves. They landed near what had once been a temple, half buried, crumbling, yet still defiant against the erosion of time. Weapons drawn, they stepped into the gloom. The temple breathed with ancient power. Symbols carved deep into the walls pulsed faintly under Elira's touch. No one else could have activated them. The air thickened, electric and heavy. At the heart of the ruin stood a sealed door, smooth and seamless. No visible mechanism. No lock. Elira approached, heart hammering. "You don't have to," Rin said from behind, voice rough with concern. "I do," she answered, pressing her palm flat against the stone. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the door shuddered and split down, the middle parting with a deep, resonant sigh. A golden light spilled forth, illuminating a hidden chamber. Inside, a single device floated, an orb of glass and metal, spinning slowly above a cracked pedestal. Energy flared around it in gentle pulses, rhythmic and alive. Elira stepped forward, drawn by some invisible thread. Rin grabbed her wrist gently. "Careful." She looked back, offering a small, tremulous smile. "Trust me." He did. He always had. Elira reached out, fingertips brushing the orb. Visions slammed into her mind. Cities reborn from barren worlds, life flourishing where none should exist, stars reignited from collapse. But alongside creation, destruction lurked. The same device could wipe entire civilizations from existence. A dual-edged miracle, beautiful and terrible. She staggered back, gasping. Rin caught her before she fell, his arms steady around her trembling body. "You saw it," he murmured. Tears slid down her cheeks, sparkling like tiny crystals. "It's too much. I'm not strong enough." "You are," he insisted, tightening his hold. "You've survived everything meant to break you. That makes you stronger than anything in this dead place." Footsteps echoed from the entrance. Instinctively, Rin shoved Elira behind him, weapon raised. Figures emerged from the shadows. Mercenaries clad in black, faces hidden behind reflective visors. Their leader stepped forward, a woman with silver, armor etched in the same glyphs as the temple walls. "Step away from the girl," she commanded. "No," Rin said without hesitation. The woman's gaze hardened. "She doesn't belong to you. She doesn't belong to anyone." Blasters hissed from holsters. Standoff inevitable. The woman tilted her head, considering. "We don't want to hurt her. We want to protect the legacy." Elira stepped out from behind. Rin before he could stop her. "You mean control it," she said coldly. The woman smiled thinly. "Survival demands hard choices." "Not yours to make," Elira answered, voice clear and steady, energy built in the chamber. The orb flared in response to her defiance. Rin braced himself, heart pounding. Elira lifted her hand, and the power responded. Walls shimmered, the very air vibrating with her will. The mercenaries staggered, caught off guard by the sudden surge. "Run!" Rin shouted, grabbing her hand. They sprinted back through the collapsing corridors, chased by shouts and weapon fire. Debris rained from the ceiling. Dust choked the air. Rin's grip never loosened. He didn't look back. He didn't need to. Elira was right there with him, running towards something bigger than either had ever imagined. Freedom wasn't a gift. It was something you seized with blood, breath, and sheer stubborn will. And neither of them planned to let go. The night bled into dawn, thin strands of light filtering through the fractured ruins as Rin and Elira stumbled from the collapsing temple. Their lungs burned with every breath soot and ancient dust clinging to their skin. Behind them, the world they had unlocked trembled on the edge of waking. The old legends had been true. Power unimaginable slept beneath the stars, waiting for someone foolish or desperate enough to awaken it. Elira clutched the orb tight against her chest, its warmth pulsing in rhythm with her heartbeat. Each step felt heavier, as if the galaxy pressed down upon her small frame, testing her strength. Rin kept pace beside her, blood dripping from a shallow cut above his eyebrow, boots slipping on the loose stones. He didn't complain. He simply moved, every breath a promise that he wasn't letting her face this alone. They reached the clearing where Rin had parked the ship, its battered hull gleaming faintly under the rising sun. Engines already hummed to life, loyal and ready despite the beating they had endured. Behind them, figures appeared through the swirling dust, mercenaries regrouping, unwilling to give up the prize so easily. "Go!" Rin shouted, firing a few wild shots to slow their approach. Elira sprinted toward the ramp, heart hammering in her ears. She didn't look back. She trusted him to follow. The ship's ramp groaned as it lifted, sealing them inside moments before blaster fire peppered the exterior. Rin slid into the pilot's seat, hands flying over controls, coaxing the ship into the air with a deafening roar. They climbed sharply, debris and stray fire chasing them into the poisoned sky. Elira strapped herself into the nearest seat, cradling the orb. It pulsed against her, singing a song she barely understood, threads of knowledge brushing her mind. Rin pulled the ship into open space, setting a course into the void without hesitation. Only when the planet shrank behind them, a scarred jewel, spinning in the endless dark, did he allow himself a ragged breath. "Where to now?" he asked, glancing over his shoulder. Elira looked at him, really looked, seeing the blood, the exhaustion, the sheer stubbornness that refused to yield. "Anywhere," she said softly, "as long as we're free." He smiled, a raw, crooked thing, but beautiful in its honesty. The orb flared brighter, sensing her acceptance, stabilizing its chaotic energy. Its danger remained, a sleeping storm within fragile glass, but for the first time, it was hers to command. Not theirs. Not anyone else's. Hers. Elira rose shakily, moving toward him. Without a word, she rested her forehead against his, the gesture speaking volumes no language could capture. He closed his eyes, savoring the contact, letting it anchor. Him more than any mission or home ever had. "You're not alone anymore," he murmured. "Neither are you," she replied. The ship slipped into hyperspace, the stars stretching into blinding lines around them. The past broke away, like shattered chains falling into the void. They found a system off the charts, orbiting a sun so ancient its light barely touched the surrounding planets. Elira named the world they chose for their sanctuary. She plucked, a word from some half-remembered dream, HFY, meaning hope. They landed in a valley of wild silver trees, skies painted in endless shades of blue and violet. No cities, no hunters. Just the endless hush of living things, untouched by greed. Rin built their shelter with his own hands, grumbling at every splinter, but secretly loving every moment. Elira carved gardens into the rich soil, growing things that shimmered under the twin moons. Nights were spent wrapped in each other's arms, no longer out of fear, but because neither wished to let go. Days passed without measure, marked only by laughter, whispered dreams, and the soft hum of life returning to the barren edges of the universe. The orb remained sealed, hidden deep beneath their new home, its dangerous promise waiting for a world wiser than the one they had escaped. Elira often caught Rin watching her when he thought she wasn't looking, an expression so full of wonder it made her breath catch. Once, as they lay tangled together beneath the open sky, she asked, "Do you regret it? Giving up everything for me?" He answered without hesitation, voice a rumble against her ear. "I didn't give up anything. I found everything." Tears prickled at her eyes, but she smiled, burying her face against his chest, feeling the steady beat of his heart against her cheek. Together, they had outrun the chains of the past. Together, they had seized a future no one could steal. And somewhere far beyond the edges of memory and war, among the endless stars, two lost souls finally carved, out a place no one could take from them. Not kings, not conquerors, not fate, only them, only choice, only love.